Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we are tackling a question that's pretty wild.
Mm.
I mean, it might just blow your mind. Do fungi have a language of their own?
Oh,
I know, right?
that is a good question.
You sent in some amazing research, including a paper from Royal Society Open Science.
Mm.
The title is a mouthful, Language of Fungi Derived from Their Electrical Spiking Activity.
Catchy.
Yeah.
Right.
You also included some great background info about fungal communication.
Yeah.
So we are ready to dive in.
I think what's really cool about this topic is that it makes you look at the world in a whole new way.
Yes.
We walk through forests all the time and we're totally clueless about all this communication happening right under our feet.
Yeah, it's like this whole secret world is going on, and we're just starting to get like little peeks into it.
Right.
I've always been fascinated by the wood wide web.
Yeah.
This idea that fungi create these massive underground networks. It's crazy.
Exactly. This network of fungal threads. It's called mycelium. It's not just about getting nutrients, though. It's like this communication highway. It lets fungi send signals across crazy distances.
No way.
Yeah, they can release chemicals, trade nutrients, and even send electrical impulses.
So it's like a busy underground city with fungi sending messages back and forth.
Yeah, pretty much.
And what's even wilder is that this communication isn't just like fungal chit-chat. It actually plays a big role in keeping ecosystems healthy.
Yeah, that's right. These networks are super important for things like forest regeneration, nutrient cycling, and even helping trees survive droughts and diseases. Fungi are like the forest protectors or something.
Okay, let's get into the research you sent. This paper, Language of Fungi Derived from Their Electrical Spiking Activity, is where things get really interesting. The researchers actually put electrodes into 4 different types of fungi to record their electrical activity.
Yeah, and they picked some specific fungi. They looked at Cordyceps militaris, Flammulina volutipes, Schizophyllum commune, and Omphalodus nidiformis.
Okay, I'm going to need you to repeat those one more time for me.
All right. Cordyceps militaris, Flammulina volutipes, Schizophyllum commune, and Omphalodus nidiformis.
Omphalodus nidiformis, that's the one that grows on tree branches, right?
You got it. There's a picture of it in Figure 1A of the paper.
And what's really crazy is that when you look at the electrical signals they recorded, Figure 2, they kind of look like Morse code.
Yeah.
Like fungi are sending out these coded messages.
It really does.
So how did the researchers even start to figure out these signals? It's not like we could just sit down and have a conversation with a mushroom. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, they took those spike patterns and turned them into binary code. So 1 for a spike and 0 for no spike. It's like translating fungal electricity into something computers understand.
So they were making like a fungal dictionary.
Kind of. They also grouped these spikes into words and sentences. They did that based on the timing and how often the signals happen. It's all in Figure 5 and Figure 6.
And what did they find out? Are these fungal sentences as complex as what we see in like human languages?
Well, that's the big question. They found that the complexity is different depending on the type of fungi. For example, Schizophyllum commune seems to be the most chatty one, with a vocabulary of up to 50 words.
50 words?
Yeah.
That's incredible. What could they possibly be saying to each other?
That is the question, isn't it?
That's where it gets really interesting. When the researchers compared the word length in fungi to human languages, they found some similarities. It's all in Figure 10 of the paper.
Okay.
So are we saying that fungi are down there having deep conversations? Like, are they sharing gossip about which trees have the best nutrients or something?
Well, hold on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We are still really early in understanding this whole fungal language thing. We've identified words and sentences, but we don't actually know what they mean yet.
Right. It's like we found this old scroll with writing in a language we've never seen. We can see the patterns, but we don't have the key to unlock the meaning.
Exactly. But even without knowing exactly what it all means, these findings are huge. They make us rethink what we consider intelligence and communication. I mean, we tend to think language is a human thing. But fungi are showing us there might be other ways of communicating in complex ways.
This is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Imagine if we could crack the code of this fungal language. What secrets could we uncover? What could they be telling us about the ecosystem, the history of the forest, maybe even about ourselves?
Those are some big questions, and that's exactly where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive. Picking up where we left off, it's amazing how those researchers investigated the fungal electrical signals.
Yeah.
They didn't just record them.
Right.
They analyzed them and found some really cool patterns.
Yeah, it's one thing to say, hey, fungi produce electrical impulses, but it's a whole other thing to say, wait a minute, These impulses look like they're organized like a language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what really stood out to me was how they looked at the differences in electrical activity between those 4 fungi they studied.
Right. We've got Cordyceps militaris, Flammulina volutipes, Schizophilum commune, and Omphaliotus nidiformis, our tree branch friend. Makes sense that different species would have different ways of communicating.
Yeah, like different languages have different structures.
Exactly.
And the researchers found some pretty big differences. For example, Cordyceps militaris had the lowest average spiking frequency,
Okay.
while Flammulina volutipes was way more active with a much higher frequency. Figure 4 in the paper shows you these differences visually.
So it's like some fungi are whispering while others are shouting.
Yeah, kinda.
Wonder if that has to do with how they live or the environments they're in?
Good question, and probably something researchers are looking into. But what I found really interesting was how complex the signals were, especially in Schizophilum commune.
Okay, tell me more about that. What was so special about Schizophilum commune?
Well, they found that the electrical signals in the species would increase in amplitude, reach a peak, and then decrease. This pattern, it's in figure 6, suggests that these impulses aren't just random, there's a structure to them.
So it's not just that they're sending signals, it's that they're sending them in a very specific way.
Exactly. And they even looked at how these spike patterns changed over time.
Okay.
And they found that these transitions weren't random either.
Interesting.
They followed a certain order, almost like a set of rules for how these signals could be combined.
So we're not just talking about words anymore.
Nope.
We're talking about grammar syntax,
Hmm.
like the building blocks of a real communication system.
That's the idea. And remember, we're talking about organisms without brains as we know them.
Right.
It really makes you think differently about intelligence and how it shows up in nature.
It's like we discovered a secret code, a hidden language in nature.
To dig deeper into these patterns, the researchers created something called state transition graphs.
Okay.
Think of them as maps of how the fungal electrical signals go from one state to another. They're in figures 11 and 12.
So they're charting the flow of the conversation,
Yeah.
mapping the paths of this fungal language.
Exactly. And guess what? Schizophilum commune stands out again.
Yeah, of course it does.
It's got the most complex graphs, which suggests it's got a higher level of information processing than the others.
So our chatty Schizophilum commune friend is really showing off its language skills.
Yeah.
But how does all of this compare to human languages? Are we talking about sentences with subjects and verbs and all that?
Well, that is the question. While there are some similarities with word length, we have to be careful about comparing them directly.
Right.
Human language is super complex with tons of meaning and cultural stuff. It's too early to say if these fungal signals are that sophisticated.
Right. We don't want to start translating fungal poetry just yet.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
even if it's not Shakespeare, these findings are still huge. They open up a whole new way of thinking about how organisms communicate.
It's like we found a whole new dimension of communication.
Yeah.
And we're just starting to figure it out. What could be more exciting?
Well, there are some limitations to the research. We should talk about those before we get too excited.
Okay.
We'll explore those in part 3. But first, let's just appreciate how amazing this all is.
Okay, so we're back for the last part of our fungal language deep dive, and we've uncovered some incredible stuff. But like you said, there are always limitations in research. We got to be aware of those before we get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Science is about asking questions, testing, and refining what we know. This research is groundbreaking, but it brings up more questions than it answers.
So let's play devil's advocate here. What are some things we need to be careful about with these findings?
Well, just because we see patterns like language doesn't mean it's language like we know it. You know, correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right, just because two things look alike doesn't mean they're connected the same way.
Right, like seeing a face and a piece of toast. It might look like a face, but it's not actually a person staring back at you.
Exactly. We're really good at seeing patterns, even when they're not there. We got to be careful not to put our idea of language onto these fungi signals.
Yeah, the big question is, are these signals a real language or just a complex way of signaling?
Yeah.
What would make you think fungi are really communicating like humans?
That's a good question. I think intentionality is important in language. When we talk, we choose words for specific meanings. We're not just making sounds.
Right, there's a purpose. We're trying to share info, express feelings, or get someone to do something. Do we see that in fungi?
Yeah. Do we see that intentionality in these signals?
That's what more research needs to tell us. We need to move past just finding patterns and see how these signals connect to fungi behavior and how they interact with their surroundings.
So we need to watch how fungi react to these signals. Do they change what they do based on the signals? Do they send different signals in different situations?
Yeah, we need to see a link between signals and actions. And that's hard. Fungi are not easy to study in the wild.
Yeah. We can't just set up a microphone in the forest and listen to them chat.
Right. So even though these findings are exciting, we're a long way from saying for sure that fungi have a language. But that doesn't mean we should stop looking into it.
It's like we opened a door to a whole new world and we're just starting to look around. What are the next steps for researchers to go deeper?
Well, one cool idea is to mess with the electrical signals and see what the fungi do. Can we get them to do something by sending fake signals? Can we stop communication by blocking signals? That could tell us about what the signals mean and what they do.
It's like learning to speak fungi so we can ask them, hey, what are you guys talking about?
Haha, yeah. And another cool thing is to look at how these signals are affected by the environment. Do fungi change how they communicate when the temperature changes or if there's more or less water or nutrients?
It would be amazing to see how fungi are reacting to climate change or how they're talking to other things in the ecosystem.
Yeah, there's so much we still don't know, and that's what makes this so exciting. It's pushing the limits of what we know about life and opening up new ways to explore.
This has been one of our most mind-blowing deep dives.
Hmm.
We're all going to look at the world a little differently now. Every time I walk in the woods, I'll be thinking about the secret conversations happening under my feet.
Me too. It makes you appreciate how complex and connected nature is. Who knows what else is out there just waiting to be found?
Huge thanks to you for sharing your knowledge and helping us break down this research. And to our awesome listener who sent this in, thanks for making us curious and taking us on this journey into the world of fungi communication.
My pleasure.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop being amazed by nature. Until next time, happy deep diving.